What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Jericho Black, and today we are talking rig rundown. All right, so before we get into it, I'm not going to talk so much about building the board and wiring it up and all of that because there's a bunch of videos explaining how to do that. I will get into a little bit on the order of how to do it because there are some things you want to look out for when it comes to the Temple audio boards. But outside of that, I mainly want to talk about the application of the pedal board and why I chose what I chose to be the brains and how I'm routing it. So I want to talk about how this board is built to survive in any application. So that goes from bedroom practice to studio application as well as live performance and how it translates and is consistent throughout those platforms and mediums. I don't like to tap dance while I'm playing. I don't even like to be focused on what pedals are on the floor and what I'm going to next. It's kind of just a second nature thing on what I'm going for emotionally in the song. So with that said, let's talk about why I got rid of my digital pedals, I guess. Why I still have the Nano. I did get the Nano. I will talk about that in a bit. That is the secondary pilot. So like this is the big rig and then I have the fly rig, right? And what I did was I was able to capture the Tone King into the Nano, and being that we have V2 captures now, well, I mean, I can't capture V2 on the Nano, as you know, but being that we have V2 captures, those included with the Tone King Imperial that I captured, it does deliver the consistency that I'm looking for when I do solely use that. But in order of appearance, we have the tuner. Then the tuner goes into the wah goes into the soul food into the Qtron going into my fuzz, the fuzz into my Vertex clean drive into the tumnus into the amp, which I have the 4 cable method running. So this is the Tone King preamp, and it's basically the brains of this board. So everything is running into the Tone King. Then from the Tone King, I have it sending into my reverb, from the reverb into the chorus, to my delays, and then back into the Tone King. Now the beauty of this brains, like I keep calling it, of the operation is I have everything routed to it, 4 cable method style. I can run this out into an amplifier and still employ the 4 cable method into the amp, which allows me to bypass this Tone King and use the channels of the amp if I'd like. Or I have, of course, the 2 channels of the Tone King, which also has reverb and tremolo. So that's perfect because not only does it allow me to run to an amp for my stage monitoring, but it also has the stereo XLR outs. So not only can I run out to the amp for my stage monitors, but I have the option to go direct out and front of house is happy. And again, like I said, for application, this works for studio because I have my XLR out. So I basically just patch in and I'm just running XLR out and I can be monitored in studio. And that brings me to my amp solution. So again, like I said, this runs perfectly into an amp and allows me to run a 4 cable method into the amp, bypass the channel of the channels of the Tone King and use the amp, or use the amp basically as a power amp. And then there's this. So this is my Nano Cortex. It is my secondary rig by itself. I'm thinking of getting an expression pedal, but it takes away from its small form factor. So it's still in debate. We will see come 2026. But with that said, I have the Nano with my Tone King captured, so I'm still running that consistent sound. You see I have my Hot Rod Deluxe back here that I typically use, but I'm gonna get rid of that, and I have a 1x12 cabinet on the way that I will be powering with this. So this is the Moore Baby Bomb. It's a 30-watt power amp that I can run my board from straight into the cabinet, power the cabinet, and just use the tone that I've built from the Tone King without worrying about running into double preamping if I forget to bypass the IRs or anything like that, which again, I can bypass the IRs in the Tone King for the cabinet I'll be using and still have the IR simulation running to front of house out of the XLR. Beautiful piece of kit. I definitely recommend checking out the Tone King. But back to it. The Moore Baby Bomb. This has become the solution to the rig for both setups. So I have this board that I'll be running into the Baby Bomb into my cabinet, or if I'm doing a lighter rig that day and don't want to transport the big board, I can bring the Nano, bring the Baby Bomb in my cabinet, and I'm good to go. So again, that's just my real world applications that allow me to get by in any scenario with a portable light rig, but also very professional, and it allows me to have any sound that I'm going for. Excuse me, I am in a cover band, so I do play different genres and different styles, and I need to be able to adapt on the fly. So it's really handy to have, I guess, the core food groups of pedals. You know, your fuzzes, delays, chorus, reverb, some overdrive, and then some fun stuff. You know, I got the Qtron, the envelope filter. I think a wah is just necessity, but that's just me, flavor. You know, a volume pedal could be useful, but I'm not a big volume swell guy, and if I do, I just need to get my pinky dialed in to get that swell in. Outside of that, I think this is the perfect rig that will grow with me and be able to transition with me. Whether I need to swap out one or two pedals in the future is a possibility, but I highly doubt that I'll need to completely rework this rig. But again, this is my rig for 2026. I am a new gigging musician. I will I'll give kind of like a quick flash of my pedal board renditions over this past year as it's walking into 2026. 2024, I started playing guitar and had no idea about anything in this pedal world. It all was a deep rabbit hole that I jumped into 2025, and I went through renditions of analog pedals on a small board. I got digital board. I got the Fender Tone Master Pro. Didn't really like the tones I was getting out of it, so I sold that and ended up getting the Tone King Imperial and the Nano. And I'm very happy, very, 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 very happy with what I landed on, because the tone is immaculate and there's so much room to work it. I think that the flexibility of my board is more important than having presets. I don't like having presets because in a real world application, I'll say at my first gig, I had the Fender Tone Master Pro at my feet. I had a preset set for every song that we were gonna play, and they were in order, and we didn't play the set list in order, and I ended up having to click around and kind of click through presets to get to where I needed to get to before we played the songs. And in some songs, they just jump in. So it was one of those mental switches, light bulbs that went on that said, okay, maybe it's not a preset thing that I'm looking for and just a baseline tone that I can adjust by clicking one or two things on. And so that's kind of where my mind was when I decided to build this board. And I'm very excited and looking forward to 2026, guys. Let's see how it holds up. I think it'll be great. It has its first gig, New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is the first gig for this board, and I'm terribly excited. I do have an extra power cable coming out on the side because for New Year's, I will be bringing the Nano to set aside from this and patch it in the front. There is one song that we play in E flat, and I mean, I could play it higher up the neck, but the chords I like to play for the song are kind of down at the bottom of the neck, and if I'm tuned down to E flat, it works perfect, but if I'm tuned in standard, I can't do it. this gives me the capability to transpose my guitar, and it actually sounds really good. So I have a basic preset on here that just has the pitch shifter transposed down a semitone, and I just click this on. I'm in E flat for the song. I click it off, I'm back to standard and ready for the rest of the gig. So again, another real world application of how I'll be using this setup. Now, real quick, I ran down the signal chain a little bit, but I want to talk about what each pedal does and how I apply it and kind of what's always on. The Tone King always on. It's always, for the most part, on the clean channel. I do use the lead channel, but sparingly, because if I'm on clean, then I can just use my distortion or click on a fuzz if that's the texture I'm going for. The Soul Food is the one I'm gonna go to first. Before I click on distortion, the Soul Food is really just my mid-gain push. So if I'm doing a lead line that's not a solo, it's just more a predominant guitar song, I'll click this Soul Food on and leave it on. However, the Vertex, for the most part, is the one that's always on. It's kind of just that in the Tone King makes the tone, my baseline tone. So I run this kind of as a compressor. So it boosts my tone a little bit, adds a little sustain, it maybe a touch of gain, but I don't use it to really add any distort. It's a clean drive, so it's not gonna really give you too much bite, which I like. So I had what was it, a UAD? It was the UAFX 1176. I had an 1176 on my board, and I did a show where the setting was just slightly too low for either the input or the output, but it wasn't all the way down. It was just slightly too low, and I wasn't getting any guitar signal out of my board. And rather than troubleshoot it at the time of the gig, I didn't really have that time. I just unplugged the board and went direct. And I was very unhappy with my performance of the show. Obviously, it wasn't a bad performance for the audience, but yeah, I just didn't have access to my tools. So yeah, that was an immediate, okay, 1176, you're gone. And I found this on Facebook Marketplace. Really, I found a lot of these pedals on Marketplace. The Karen Fuzz pedal is probably my favorite fuzz pedal I've ever encountered. I haven't encountered many, so maybe not a fair statement, but it sounds just super musical. It's very dynamic and responsive. It can be clean and just kind of give you a little bit more body to your tone, or you can drive it and get it nice and dirty and fuzzy. And the tone really adjusts for low end. So if it's just too bottom heavy, you can roll that tone off. And yeah, it's probably my favorite pedal on this board aside from the Imperial. So there's that. This reverb pedal, I keep it set to a Hall drenched, the mix pretty high and the depth pretty high. And I like this because it's kind of you can tap it and turn it on, or you can just hold it, put your foot on it and hold. And then when you release it, it lets go of the effect. And I have a few songs where I just washed in verb. It was kind of a Santana move on my part. So I just washed the lead line in verb, and I used that pedal for that specifically. The chorus pedal, obviously, I had a Supro chorus, but beautiful analog chorus, it just didn't do enough. You know, this has the phaser, it has the chorus, the phaser, the flanger, you know what I mean? And it's digital, obviously, so you can go on the app and set up some presets that you might like, and it has the preset knob here, and then you can click on whatever you have on the bass setting there. And yeah, I almost swapped out my delay pedal until I found out that this does have tap tempo. So if you do have a TC Electronic Flashback and you did not know that it has tap tempo and you're trying to get rid of it based on that, hold it, you'll hear a little click in your amp. You strum your guitar to the tempo or speed that you're looking to get your delay match to. Let it go and give it a shot. Make sure your guitar is turned up. You do need to have some volume in order for it to work. But yeah, I thought that was phenomenal. So once I figured that out, I left this on here because I, as you see, don't have much real estate for one of those wide double pedal delays. Okay, so final takeaways. I'm encouraging smarter builds, not bigger builds, right? This is, yes, a bigger board than I had in the past. However, this is as big as I want to go. Also keep in mind, it's not just about your tone when you're in one room, but in different spaces, different venues, and make sure that you have a rig that is applicable to those spaces and gives you the room to adjust on the fly. Again, this is me 2 years in the game, almost 2 years rather. I'm thrilled, I'm excited. That's my pedal board for 2026. Thank you for tuning in. Cheers guys, till next time.